Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today as co-host is Daniel McAdams. He happens to not be in the studio, but there's been some news about the Institute for Peace and Prosperity, and he cannot be found in Texas. I found him in California, and he's going to be with us, and I'm just wondering whether he had to go into hiding. I wonder if he is concerned about the Institute being put on a blacklist by the Washington Post. What do you say, Daniel, and welcome to the program today.
Thank you, and good morning, Dr. Paul. Yes, I'm deep in my bunker in the hills of Southern California. I'm hiding and cowering in fear because the Washington Post has outed us, along with the Drudge Report, Zero Hedge, and others, as Russian propaganda sites. So I'm in hiding.
Well, you know, we put up an article on the website the other day with the help of Chris Rosini, our manager of our website, and he gathered some information together, and that had to do with listing the sites that put out fake news, and these names were, produced, I think, originally by Breitbart. But what was interesting, it was put up, and it was almost like not too many people had heard about this because we had a tremendous amount of traffic and interest, which was pleasing to me that people do come to our website. But what was going on there? Where exactly did that list come from?
Well, this is, part of the whole post-election, assessment of where they went wrong. And, for the Democratic Party, rather than look inside to how their campaign may not have connected with people and what they might have done wrong, they wanted to blame the whole thing on so-called fake news, which is people that put out rumors as fact on the internet and these sorts of things. And they want to blame that for the loss of Hillary Clinton. But what Chris did is he discovered a list that was put together of all the names of the so-called mainstream journalists, who had appeared at one time or another in the Wikileaks emails. And these were the thousands of emails that came out from John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign person, and others. These were people from mainstream organizations like the Washington Post, who were shown through these leaked emails to be actively colluding with the Democratic Party, with the Hillary Clinton apparatus to deny Bernie Sanders, for example, a fair shake, and all sorts of things, and to run their articles by the powers that be before they put them out. So what the article did was say, this is the real fake news. These are the people in the mainstream who say they're so responsible, but they're colluding. So, and then you're right, it was hugely popular.
They're accusing us of putting out fake news, and that we should listen to the mainstream media for accurate news. I thought they were going to say that we should listen to the government for the actual factual stuff that's going on, but in some ways, the government and the mainstream media, often the times they're one and the same. When you think about the real fake news that bothers me, this is important and it's interesting and people want to hear about it. But the fake news that I and you and others have been so strongly opposed to has been the war propaganda by our own government. Now, that's fake news. When you think of all the news and the lies that we were told as we were fighting this entry into the Iraq war. But that subject seems to get right past them. They just want to get credibility back. But I don't think the Washington Post and these other ones have any idea how much credibility has been lost. Like this was going to do them some good.
Well, exactly, and we could stand by everything that we've published at the Ron Paul Institute website. But you're right. Look at the Washington Post. Look at the lies they told in the run-up to the Iraq War, the mobile weapons labs, and all these things they dutifully reported without even checking. Look at all the lies going into Libya, that Gaddafi was massacring his own people. All lies. The lies going into Syria. They have an absolute track record of lying and manipulating and being fake, whereas sites like Drudge and Zero Hedge and might I say our little institute, we have to stand or fall on the accuracy of what we put out. And I think we have a pretty good track record compared to
right.
those sites.
They look and they scan the internet for influential groups, and they look for certain words and subjects that we and others might be talking about so that they can target us and discredit us. Of course, it looks like it gets more attention for us. But, you know, if you start talking about Brexits and debt and gold standards and the Federal Reserve, all of a sudden you're on their hit list. They think these are all terrible things, and quite frankly, I think we're on the side of the American people. We're certainly on the side of the American people who see what's happening, whether it's the media or whether it's the government, that people in this country, by a large majority, have lost all confidence in.
Yeah, and the Washington Post article, which was a front page article, so they obviously meant it very seriously. This wasn't a joke. It used as its exclusive source, really, a shadowy group called Prop or Not, short for Propaganda or Not. This is an organization that refuses to reveal who it is, who's behind it, who are the researchers, zero information. So in a way, it's kind of a fake news that the Washington Post is perpetrating by citing a source that there's no way to check at all what it's all about. But I made a little list of some of the things, and Justin Raimondo at Anti-War, who's also on the list, he's with us as a propaganda site. He had a good column out today, and I've taken some of the things that he's pointed out and a few others, but this is from the source cited by the Washington Post as evidence. Now, if you raise these issues on your website, you are a Russia propaganda outlet. And this is going to shock you, Dr. Paul, but I'm afraid you're going to have to fess up, because here's what they are. If you stoke fears about the national debt, if you attack institutions like the Fed, if you attempt to discredit Western financial experts, if you promote non-interventionism, if you criticize military exercises like Jade Helm, if you point out police brutality, if you express online privacy concerns, that means that you might be, that you are a Russian propaganda site. Also, if you dare to distract Americans away from relying on actually accurate journalism, like the Washington Post.
Boy.
So therefore, any alternative site should just disappear. Stop doing it.
I'm going to have trouble escaping from some of those accusations. But the one that is also of interest is that those of us who make some of those statements, that it's not that we're taking a pro-American position defending the type of foreign policy that we would like to see. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about a constitutional foreign policy. They don't talk about friendship with other nations and trade with other nations that might lead to a better world. They say, well, that anybody who says this, they're pro-Russian. They're in a conspiracy. They're part of the conspiracy to set up Russia. And I keep thinking that, therefore, then you were pro-Trump and you were anti-Hillary. Well, you know, I didn't fall into that category. I happen to have fallen in a more independent category because I wouldn't describe myself as pro-Russia. I describe myself as pro-truth, the best I can figure it out. And sometimes, you know, the truth falls on the side of the Russians, especially in Ukraine. You know, I think the Russians had an argument against the coup, against the elected government of Ukraine. So this is pretty wild for them to say, well, if you do this, you're pro-Russia, you're pro-Trump, and you're anti-Hillary. And I think the chips should fall where they may if we can get the truth out. And I think that's what the people are starved for. If we're looking at any degree of success with our website, I think it's not that people say, you know, every single thing you say I agree with. It's sort of like, at least you're telling us the truth. At least you're trying to reach out and tell us which are the fake stories. And if I had my druthers, I'd rather people think about the fake stories of our government. And the other thing that bothers me, and you might comment on this, is this movement that is opposed to what we're doing is, in a way, they're setting the stage. I mean, if they had a continuation of Obama, they're suggesting that the government then should crack down. They're looking for censorship, and they're doing this in a way that just says that that you're telling lies, and therefore you should be closed down. You have no credibility, and that can verge on some very dangerous trends.
Indeed, this is where it gets serious, because the report cited by the Washington Post explicitly says that these 200 websites that it has identified as Russian propaganda outlets should be investigated by the U.S. government for possible prosecution under the Espionage Act or the Foreign Agents Registration Act. So they don't want to just say these sites are discredited. They want to actually see people go to jail for daring to present news alternatives to the Washington Post and New York Times. And I find that very, very chilling and frightening. And so should the rest of America, whether you like the Ron Paul Institute, antiwar.com, and the others, or whether you hate us, because it is something that is so deeply anti-American. I can't believe we're discussing it at the end of 2016.
Right. You know, there's a website that was totally unknown a few weeks ago, but has become an arbiter of all this, and that's at Prop or Not. Tell us about that. What are they up to, and how did they get into the headlines so easily, and why are people even looking at them?
I think that's probably the real conspiracy. Here's a site that does not list any single person as part of it. So there's no way of knowing what kinds of people are behind it. It's as you say, it didn't exist. And all of a sudden, it is so important that the Washington Post cites it on the front page. How does that happen? In what universe does a completely anonymous organization suddenly get enough credibility to be featured in the newspaper of record for the Beltway? There's the real conspiracy that people should be looking into.
You know, and the other thing that I think I sense it happening here is an old technique. If you're hearing the truth come out and a messenger delivers it, you know, this is in ancient history. What you do, you don't, try to correct the problem. You destroy the messenger. And I think that is part of what's happening. But, you know, we're in such a situation now with the internet and other things that it isn't nearly as damaging to the messenger. It's actually helping us get our message out. And that, to me, is encouraging. And also, the other thing that people look for are the scapegoats. Who should we blame? They in a way, blame us for being the messenger, but really, it's those dirty old rotten Russians, you know, and they treat them as if Lenin is back in charge again, and that Europe is going to be overrun by Russian tanks. And of course, that is another, fake hit news as well about what is likely to happen in Europe, because there is a tremendous buildup of militarism in Europe. But it happens to be more than just the policy of Russia that's involved.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we've said this many times on the show, and you've said it over the years. The argument is that we're unpatriotic because we criticize this interventionist foreign policy. But I think, you and the rest of the critics are the real patriots, because we understand that we cannot continue to spend as much on the military as the next 7 or so nations combined, and continue to be a strong, healthy country. When our economy is destroyed because of this excessive military spending and playing policeman to the world, what is going to be left of the country? We're the real patriots. We want to protect the United States.
Right, and I can't foresee what will be happening exactly with, Trump's foreign policy. And I'm not even sure whether this little squabble will have much effect on what's happening. But right now, I have a little bit concern and interest. I think the whole country is interested now in who might be the Secretary of State, because that's pretty important. Of course, I think the first appointment that has already occurred, that is of great deal of significance, is who a presidential candidate picks for their vice president. So in many ways, I think this squabble, I don't know where it's going to lead to, and I'm always hoping for the best. But when I see people being talked to that might be leading the charge on foreign policy and sort of being in the middle of this mess, where are we going to get the facts, and where are we going to get the real story? I think that's going to be a real challenge to everybody to sort it out. Those who are very sincere and in our government and want to do the best, and those of us who want to sort it out and let the chips fall where they may, and let the people know what we believe is the truth behind what's happening.
Yeah, we look with some concern at some of the names that have been touted, and thankfully, some like John Bolton appear to have gone by the wayside, and maybe hopefully Mitt Romney, if Kellyanne Conway is any indication, what she said over the weekend. But there's a heck of a lot to be worried about. I don't think, at least from the names we see, there's not a lot to cheer about, at least those that the media is bandying about. But, our position has been we're going to hope for the best, and we will criticize where it's wrong and praise where it's right, like we did with Obama on Cuba and Iran.
Daniel, we're going to have to finish up here shortly, but I wanted to touch one more subject, and that has to do with somebody been on the side of the truth as far as I'm concerned, and even involved in what we're discussing, and that happens to be Assange with WikiLeaks. They were very much involved in releasing some of this information about fake stories and getting these lists. So I think they deserve some credit because they have done a lot of work to help us find out what's really happening. And I sure hope that the new administration that we have coming in will look carefully at removing some of the legal threats against Assange. He is not a threat to our national security, and I think that the American people, when they know the full story, would agree with us on that.
Absolutely. Assange and WikiLeaks have stepped up where the mainstream media has completely censored itself. They are providing transparency on the people who purport to lead us, to be our leaders. They should be praised, and absolutely, let's hope that the next administration will stop the witch hunt of WikiLeaks. They've done a great public service.
Right. And Daniel, I think we're going to call that a close now, but thank you for working us in from your secure spot in California. Oh, I gave it away. You're in California, but I believe you'll be back in the studio tomorrow, and that will be good. And I want to thank our viewership today for tuning in, and please come back soon to the Ron Paul Liberty Report.